Alrighty. So now joined by a Bowmanville native. Around these parts, he's remembered as one of our Windsor Spitfires enforcers during that 2009 Memorial Cup championship run and leading up to it, of course. And of course, he's a 2009 Mem Cup champ. Drafted by the Blackhawks and spent 2 seasons with the Marlies. But here to tell his story is Richard Greenop. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, like we were talking about before, we actually had a good little podcast before this, I guess, and just so happy to have you on, man. I've always wanted to have you on, and I'm sure we're gonna have some good stories and stuff to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like I said, we'll never forget your name here in Windsor, and I want to see how much you kind of remember from the very beginning. I mean, it's going back a little bit, but different time for the team, even when you arrived, compared to the end, right? So
yeah,
you remember about first coming in?
It was new management. I remembered my first camp that I came. It was Mo Mantha and those guys.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't really keen on even staying in Windsor. I wasn't even sure I wanted to play anymore, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I went back to play Tier 2 in Oshawa, and I had heard that there was some new ownership and some good guys coming in. I came back for summer camp after my Tier 2 year, and DJ Smith was running it. And of course, I got a liking to DJ, and I spent the whole camp just trying to fight anybody. Nobody was having it. Of course, DJ loved it. And I did well skills-wise there too. And then I went into main camp, and they had a guy there in the old barn, ready to fight, first shift, first everything, go in. And I always like to think that was the fight, the determining fight, like whether I was for real or not, because this other guy was a big name too. And I absolutely wiped the floor with him. Like, it was bad. I had to change my jersey, my elbow pads. I had blood everywhere. I had to take my mouth guard. It was disgusting. And then they got me all new gear, all new elbow pads, sent me back out. And then actually my favorite part of that was I was staying at my billet's house, and Ryan Baldwin was driving me back and forth to the rink. And he drove me to the rink. They set us out to fight each other. We fought, and then he drove me home and then invited me to his mother's birthday dinner that night. So we ended up having birthday dinner, and then we had spaghetti dinner every night for 3 years with Vicky. Yeah, it was amazing people. And a lot of Windsor was like that for me. I just met people that I loved. It was a special place for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a Windsor guy for you, in Baldwin.
Yeah,
we'll fight, but we'll be friends too, right?
Yeah. They were just amazing people. His family was just very special and dear to me, for sure.
Yeah, and well known here in Windsor in the hockey community, for sure too. So,
oh yeah, absolutely, Freddie there. Yeah.
So that kind of attests to our what we're talking about. And you mentioned you did well in the skills aspect there at training camp too. And just to kind of a little bit offshoot, but obviously you're known as an enforcer from your time.
Yeah.
Never thought that you were not a skilled player either, personally, but what really kind of got you into it? Were you always into hockey, or was it just something everyone did out there?
To be honest with you, my dad, it might have been just something like my dad wanted to get me into some sports, whether it was martial arts or fighting or hockey or whatever, right? Something probably just like any dad would want to do, get them involved in the team aspect or sport or something. I decided I want to play. It wasn't something that was pounded to me. It wasn't like we sat down and watched a hockey game every night. It wasn't like that for us. But it was very obvious that I had a natural ability, and it was something for my dad and myself to do, and it was something I enjoyed to have with my father, right? Yeah, and I was always the top skilled player in every team, even into Tier 2. They were only playing me 3 minutes a game, and I was still third on the team in probably points. So, and then I wasn't getting played, and I just said, kind of screw it. And God said, well, if you're gonna fight anywhere on the ice, would probably be the best place to do it.
Yeah.
you're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And I quickly made a name for myself that way. And then I think I sparked the attention of Windsor that time too.
Yeah. And I was going to come up anyway, but for listeners, if you haven't watched or listened to Richard on the Hockey to Hell podcast, please do so. And you mentioned a lot, of your father's influence through that, and kind of kind of getting into hockey and into kind of your role. Now, again, talked about on there, but you come to Windsor, it's not like you've never fought before, but it wasn't necessarily like that's all you did, right?
No, it was one of those things that, like, I grew up and I would always hear stories about my dad, and being a tough guy is a special label, especially for somebody like myself, being the guy that nobody wants to mess with, or even off the ice. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the times that on the ice there might be some guys that get the best of me, but off the ice, I promise you, it won't go as well as you think, because it's two totally different things. But it's just one of those things that I enjoyed the title, and it was something that my dad had a title for back in his day, and it was something that I wanted to be like my father. I wanted to be respected that way, and obviously it didn't go as planned in the long run, but it was something that I felt that was special to me. It was something I enjoyed. The hockey, I kind of fell out of love with it, I could say. And towards the end of my career, I was mainly only focusing on training in boxing, MMA, and weights. That was basically all I was training in. I would do my practices and stuff like that, but I was not doing extra work anymore. Like, the interest wasn't there as much.
Yeah. I was going to ask too if you did martial arts or anything, even growing up or while in hockey. Kind of mentioned it just now.
We did a bit of Muay Thai. We did a bit of boxing. Anything that DJ Smith would send me out for, I would kind of take. I met with a guy named Reno out of Maximum MMA. Yeah. He was awesome. That guy was great and skilled. Like, he blew my mind. And then once I hit pro, I started going into Muay Thai gyms around my area a lot.
I find it cool. I know Reno. I don't train at his place, but I train him. I do Jiu Jitsu, so familiar with. And I love when it blends together with another thing I like in hockey, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of obviously phased out now.
Yeah,
I feel like my year was the last true year of tough guys. Like, you're not going to see it anymore. Like, they were cracking down so hard on me by the end. Like, even at Mem Cup, like, they were sending us fines just because I was standing out on the ice, tapping the guys to go out on the ice.
Yeah.
They find the team just for me standing out there, because they felt like I was trying to intimidate the other team, right?
Yeah.
So that was my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that watched me in warm up, half of my game was in the warm up. So.
Yeah, man. But like you kind of talked about like that tough guy mentality and title and stuff here, and it's a big thing here. I mean, it's probably a big thing everywhere.
Yeah.
It fits perfectly in Windsor, right? Yeah.
Windsor was different. Like, you go and fight on the ice all night, and then you go to the bar and there's people knocking at your door thinking that they want to make a name for themselves at the bar, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, like, just leave it alone. Like, you know what I mean? It was one of those, but I love that place, man. I still love Windsor. It's just the way my life's ran, and this is where I am now.
Yeah, no worries, man. That's cool to hear, though, because again, like, you were kind of like our guy, and like that's what I say. We'll never forget the name, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And
I definitely left a mark on a few people, on a good amount of people out there. I'd love to obviously go back at some point. I may one day. It's different for me, especially now. Like, my billets had sold the house. Since they sold the house, it's been harder for me to go back there.
Yeah.
That house was a lot for my memory in Windsor, for sure.
It's a lot of the whole city, the whole, the organization is different now, right? So, and
yeah, absolutely.
Like you talked about, like cracking down on you at the end there. It was a transition period for the league too, and a lot of it stemmed because of stuff that happened in Windsor. Jeff Cooper, Steve Down.
They definitely made it. Like, I didn't go a year in Windsor without a bullying suspension. Like, I can admit the first one I absolutely deserved. Like the people were taking bids on how many games I was going to get in my first year because I chased some guy. I had to go for a conference meeting in Toronto, and they just put me in a boardroom. They had a big like screen up and like projector going and all these different angles of the game. And they dropped the puck at the offside line in our end. They won the face-off, went back to their D. He threw it up ice, and I just went directly to him. I was the winger, and I went across directly to him. And then he turned around, started skating forward back to his end to try to get away from me. And Branch said if there was an exit door at the back of that arena, he would have went out of it to get away from me. And I caught him right at the ice. I deserve that one for sure. But the one that really pissed me off was playoffs in the last year against Plymouth. Some guy came over and he's like flying elbowed me. I was right up against the glass, and as soon as he made contact with my face, he turtled. Like as soon as he hit me, he just went dead weight to the ground because he knew. And my gloves came off. I kind of got on top of him. I was trying to give him some shots, but it was just a dog pile at that point. And they gave me 5 games for that in the middle
I kind of remember
of
that.
the cup run. Yeah, it was garbage. They're just
yeah.
trying to crack down, right?
Yeah, we were rowdy at that time too. So I remember everyone being real pissed about that.
Oh yeah. It was quite the run.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean we're just about to get into that, that year pretty much because that's the best of the best. But one thing I want to get into too is kind of like growing up out in the Bowmanville area there, playing AAA, coached by one of our buddies and your dad, Paul Britton, and your dad were your coaches, and came up with Andrew Angelage too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Andrew, I didn't really meet him that much until tier 2.
Yeah,
it was so weird, eh? Like we did tier 2, then went to Windsor, and then went to the Marlies together. Like you'll never see that again.
No.
But yeah, for sure. It was a good upbringing. Good.
Yeah, and like that's what I mean, like 2 guys in 2 different roles, a goaltender and to play forward, make it, as far even just the same team together. Like it's always.
He was my roommate.
And you guys are roommates too, right? Of course.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're 2 guys from the same area. You got to be stuck together, right? Like the Ash brothers or something.
Yeah, it was funny. Actually, he was actually the day he was moving into our billet house. We went out for dinner, and before we were bringing him back to the apartment, and it was like me, my dad, Andrew, his dad, and everybody went to go order, and I ordered a beer, but I was only 17, right? And the lady asked for my ID, and I gave a fake ID, but it was right in front of Andrew's dad. And I don't think he was like all about that, right? So it was kind of funny. Like it was one of those funny stories.
Now I got to leave you with this guy in Windsor.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna be living with me.
Yeah. Oh shit, man! I guess we know who's supplying the beer or who's doing the runs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All the bad memory or ideas run through his head, but he was a great goaltender for us, man, too, right? So to talk about a guy like that you came up with is pretty cool. 2 guys together, and then you start in the Spits after the Legionnaires in the 2006-07 season. Again, beginning stages of what would be a great Spitfires team, but definitely weren't at the time. I'm sure that no one looked around and said, "Yeah, we'll be winning a championship in a couple of years," right?
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that. It was like Bob and Smitty and Warren, like I don't even know how to say it. My first year, like we weren't a great team, but they would always say, like, you watch, like 3 years from now, I promise you, like you watch. And they were always on about that. You know what I mean? Like we just want to be competitive. And if we're not winning on the scoreboard, we're definitely be winning and fighting. And me and Baldy I bet you over half of my fights that year were in the last 5 minutes of the game. Because if we're losing the game that year, it was me and Baldy just had free range in the last 5 minutes. And then the next year we got a bit better, and then the year after that we were just untouchable.
Yeah, it really progressed. According to their plan correctly. But it's just you always think like, and from what I can gather, like they really wanted that the next year to be the championship team, but it just happened a lot quicker than expected, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like obviously picking up Taylor Hall was huge, and we had a good draft year.
Yeah.
We picked up some big names, obviously, and we already had a handful of good guys. And then we lost Bailey going into the third year, which was kind of a kick. But we had enough going into that year as it was.
That's the thing. I think like Bailey could have played in that 2009 Memorial Cup technically, right? But he was called up. I think he might have been.
No, he didn't play that year. No, he stayed. He went to training camp for Islanders going into our Mem Cup year, and they ended up keeping him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he technically could have came back down and played. I don't know.
I just mean like he was in the age group, right? Like it's not like he was. Like,
yeah.
So like if he wouldn't have made the Islanders, he would have been there with you guys too. And imagine having Josh Bailey.
Oh yeah.
In addition to
it would have been huge. Yeah.
And you secured a spot pretty quickly too. I mean, obviously given your role, but all 3 of your seasons, 40 plus games, not something that everyone does in your role, right?
Yeah. If I missed a game, it was due to suspension. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But they just, I think it all vibed. Like I always say, like I wasn't your typical hockey guy.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like not in a bad way. It's just like I was always a little bit more of an outsider in the hockey room. But there I felt like home. You know what I mean? Like in Windsor especially, and with that team, like that was actually the team I bonded with. And on the ice, I think they definitely felt my presence behind them as well too. Like if I'm at least on the bench, or you know what I mean, at least capable, they're going to play with a little more confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as long as everyone's comfortable and on the same page, and kind of to allude to what you're saying about the coaches kind of instilling that confidence in you guys, that helps you guys probably play at a better level, or perform at that level. And
they definitely manifested it. That's for sure.
Exactly, right? And get you guys to commit and understand what the goal is here. Big mental aspect to the game, obviously.
Yeah. Winning was like a big subject. Win. Like win everything. They just didn't. They wanted it to be in our heads, right?
And it worked. It worked. Obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
And this goes back to the beginning, and before we get to the Memorial Cup championship, you're playing in the barn. It all starts in the barn. Majority of your time with the Spits is in the barn, and we talked about it a little bit. Who doesn't love playing in the barn? At least if you're on the Spitfires.
Yeah, it was. That place was absolutely incredible to me. The people from that barn was absolutely incredible to me, because it was like our fan base, like we talked about earlier, had changed and shifted from when we went from the barn to the WFCU or whatever. But at the barn, it was just like the blue collar, like my people, like my type of people, you know what I mean? Like blue collar, hardworking, good people. And like when I would fight, like it still makes my hair go up. When I'd fight, like it was like I could hear people like above me as I was fighting, and like if you're getting the upper hand, you would just hear the roaring and the screaming, and it was like almost having like an extra power with having the fans there, because it was so loud and vibrant in there. It was an incredible place.
Gives me chills, man. Fuck.
Yeah.
I miss the barn. I don't know, you're probably not too familiar with it, but it's sitting there doing nothing pretty much right now. And we have a basketball team that's trying to overtake it and have it be like their main home, and as well as like a recreation facility. So if you're familiar with what they've done in Toronto with the Maple Leaf Gardens, that's what I would want it to look like. So Maple Leaf Gardens is the old Leafs rink, and now it's a grocery store on the first floor, but everything above it is all the Ryerson University sports facility. So they just made it. They just packed a lot of shit in there, right? So we can do that with like our university and just do something with the barn.
Yeah, it was so sad leaving that place. It was never the same for me. Windsor didn't feel the same for me after leaving that. But I don't do well with change.
Yeah.
And that was definitely one of the things that hit hard on me for sure.
Yeah, everyone's different, man. And again, like it's something you love, something that we have had for so long. It's tough to
Yeah,
get
exactly.
taken away from you, right?
Yeah.
So, we'll skip a little bit because I mean, you spent 2 seasons with the barn, then moving on to WFCU, kind of halfway through that season in 08, 09. And that's when the shit happens, right? Like this is it.
Yeah.
This is big time. Talked about the coaching staff, but we had some, fantastic coaching staff that helped lead you guys there. And I'm sure they're very beneficial to you and help lead you.
They just, everything seemed like it was like the perfect puzzle. Like, Smitty, Bugner, like everybody just blended and it worked out for us. Like the coaches were on us all the time. They let us play when it was time to play, and they hammered it down when it was time to go to work. But they made it sure, like, if you want to have fun, you better show up to work. And they let us be kids, and as long as we were doing our job, then they didn't care. And I think that helped a lot, because like you sit there like a drill sergeant and beat the heck out of the kids and just work.
Yeah.
What the hell? What, I mean? You're taking the fun out of it, right?
Yeah.
And we knew when it was time to work, and we knew when it was time to play. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's just like yourself, like you say, your dad didn't push you too hard into hockey, and that's probably part of the reason why you made it to as far as you did. If you were, like, I don't really want to do this,
Yeah, like my dad was always the most supportive person. Like it didn't matter if it was hockey or even like, what I mean, even with everything else, with like the addictions and everything, I wouldn't be here without my dad. He was my rock. My wife and him were, what I mean? Like I can never say enough about my father. But yeah, it's just one of those things, right?
Yeah, it's life, man. Like life's just going on while you're a kid, really. Like, I was thinking, like, as you were talking before, it's like, obviously I looked up to you guys at that time, but I still look back and like it's like hard to think that you guys were kids when that shit was happening.
Yeah,
right. Like,
I even feel like that too sometimes.
Yeah.
But we also seen a lot, went through a lot as
Yes.
a team together. That it really separates the men from the boys, right? So you're a glorified man at that point. So.
Yeah, and that's true. And I mean, needless to say, obviously, I mean, it doesn't happen too often where a hockey team goes through such a thing like you guys did, and losing captain and Mickey Reno. And you had some crazy, like, in a sense, good stories about Mickey and that time on Brady's podcast that are pretty heavy and touching, but they're part of our history. And
I see that you guys keep it running too, which is always good to see. His memory is definitely never forgotten from what I see. I don't keep up that much, but when I always do check in on February 18th, and I'm always seeing something, so that's good.
And that's coming up, and they just announced today because of Ontario, the 18th is the last freaking game where the capacity is 500 people. Otherwise,
come on.
It's I hope they make an exemption for that. I'm give it another week, and hopefully like I don't want to take a ticket from any fan, but hopefully like media can get in there. Hopefully they still do something, because that's like the biggest game of the year. Or at least like if they have to push the ceremony to another date, I know that they won't skip it because it's Mickey, right?
So, yeah, absolutely. That's good then. That's good. I hope it works out.
Yeah, it's just these times we're living in. Hey, we've gotten to the point where we got to kind of do whatever. I don't want to talk about it too much.
Yeah, I don't want.
But it's Mickey. We got to do something for him, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And man, like I always say, you can make a movie out of this Spitfires team, and
you really could.
Like, because of that is a big part of it, and not only that, you go on to win for him, for the fans, for yourself, for everyone that for your dad, for your coaches.
Do I remember some sort of correlation between the winning goal and when it was scored, like 18-18 or something on one of the games? Is there some sort of correlation there?
Yeah, I want to pull it up now and see if I can pinpoint it, because I remember there was some, like, this was meant to be kind of thing, and 18s were in the numbers for sure.
Yeah, it's so weird, man. Everything in my life now always happens on 18 or 22. Like my son was born in 2018. My daughter was born July 18th. My kid on the way is going to be born in 2022. There's so much, man. I could go for days. There's everything in my life happens that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I don't want to get too much into all the crazy whatevers, but sometimes it's just like there's no other explanation, right? Like, it's just a sign or something.
It's eerie, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it really is. But again, man, doing it all for what you guys did, winning that championship had to feel so fucking good.
It was an amazing time. It was almost like sitting back and watching it from outside yourself. You know what I mean? Like the way everything went down, all the celebrations, and coming home, bringing the cup back to Windsor, and the parade, and finally, it was like a 3-year journey that we knew was going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like from the day I got there, we had spoken about it. It was going to happen that year, and the way the coaches were saying it was going to happen in 3 years. And we all thought that. We never, even when we lost the first couple of games, nobody hit the panic button. Nobody even really cared. Like, it's almost like we still knew everything's fine. It's going to happen. And it was like, we knew it was going to happen in 3 years, and we just watched it play out step by step by step by step. And then it was finally over. So I can't speak for what it was like for the guys the next year that also won it as well. But I know for that first year, it was something special for sure.
Yeah. And again, like most championship teams, you don't hear that as well. Like, you don't hear this has been in the works for years and it finally paid off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially at a junior level, like, come on.
Yeah. And we had so much hype and so much attention and so much pressure, but everybody held it together, and it was good to see. And like I said, we were collecting fines during Mem Cup, like for just bullshit stuff. Like, it was almost like some people were against us in a way, but we always stood strong. So
yeah, and I'm sure even though after it was all said and done, they were still coming after you guys. Like,
oh yeah,
so it's crazy, man. Like I said, I wanted to have you on, and once we connected, started to do the research, and I'm like, those 3 years go by quick in Windsor. Like, it feels like longer, but you're here for like a cup of tea pretty much, and then you're off to pro.
Yeah, it's actually sad. It was just one of those moments, like, you didn't want it to end. Like, most people would go home. Like, if you think about the OHL guys that play in their cities, they go home. You know what I mean? Like, they go home in the summer and train. Most of our guys didn't want to go home. I didn't. I stayed in Windsor. I think one summer I went home, and the rest of the summers I was off and on. Like, I would be there, but I'd be more so in Windsor, and that's where I wanted to be. You know what I mean? And a lot of other guys were that way too.
Still to this day, still guys from your team are coming here in the summer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Training at the rink, and maybe got a place to stay. But that's just a test to what you're saying. Is just kind of the family of the organization too, right?
Yeah, I've been in touch with everybody, and that's on me. But yeah, for sure. Like, it was a big family, and I miss dearly. But yeah, and I'm happy that those guys still go out there and get to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And you're living a different life now, and we'll talk briefly about it later, but not keeping in touch with a lot of guys from hockey, I guess, right?
Oh no, that's all on me too, but it was just, I had to remove myself from what I thought was my reality. And you know, I tried moving away. I tried going different places, and you know, what really ended up working was just having the right support system and putting my head down, going to work, which is what I always knew best. You know, I mean, I was always a hard worker, and I always took pride in whatever work I was doing. And you know, I'm a blue collar guy. I went to work. I put my head down and started taking pride in what I was doing, 9 to 5, and that helped pull me out too, right? So
Yeah, that's what you need sometimes. You see, it worked obviously, and it's still working. Got the overalls on, working all the time.
oh yeah.
Yeah, man. And like obviously, like I said, we watched your interview with Brady, and you know after Windsor, excuse me, is where you know it does get different for you, of course.
Yeah.
After a struggle for a young kid playing pro, you jump into that first year again. You got some familiar faces with you, which might have been good. Dale Mitchell,
Yeah.
and Jesse Blacker were there too, but
Yeah.
this is like you know this is different. This is now you're out of the billet family. Now you're on your own. So
It, honestly, when I went there, I was broken when they told me I wasn't going back to Windsor, because I was still eligible for an overage year, and they said, yeah, you're not going back, and I was like, fuck, because you know, I mean, that I'm huge about what's comfortable to me, and being in Windsor was like being home, and that's what was comfortable to me. And when I found out I wasn't going back, it hurt. And you know, I made it through that first year. I took a back concussion towards the end of the season. I was still using a lot of oxy, and I went into the next off season kind of rehabbing from my concussion, but I was still using a lot. And then full blown going into my second year pro, I was every day, like all day, every day on oxy, and obviously people knows what that does to your body, right? So, but pro wasn't an enjoyable time for me, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's I know, and it's a tough thing to kind of like how I talk about you know people's careers on the show here because you know you played for the Marlies, you played for Toronto area guy, or, you know close enough. I'm sure you're a big Leafs fan, but that's not the end all be all.
No.
You know it's not what it's all about. And that being said, you know ups and downs, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, it like, you know, I went there, and you know, I was like halfway through the season, I realized I was spending all my money on drugs and stuff like that. So I tried to reel back a bit my first year and focus on hockey more, and it was just a band-aid, right? And I went into my next year, and I didn't train at all between my first and second year. Like I was just in full-blown addiction. And I tried to start to juice a bit towards halfway through the summer, because I knew I was going to be so out of shape, right? And I ended up gaining 40 pounds. And then when I went to camp, they sent me down to do a conditioning stint, right? So, and that was okay because it got me out of Toronto, it got me away from home, and that kind of helped being down there. But as soon as I took my last concussion, it was over.
Yeah, it probably wasn't a help kind of being close to home in a sense, and not to talk about any other like hockey market, but being in Toronto, like tons of eyes on you, right? So
yeah, Marlies wasn't as much eyes, but like a lot of people never would have imagined I would be going through something like that, right? Because everybody knew me fairly well, and I was always a well-spoken, very like a nice person until, you know what I mean? So yeah, it would have been hard for somebody to realize what was going on, I think.
And like the role that you played, and it's talked about a lot now, wasn't talked about at all during your time, but no one would have thought the tough guy was, you know, had any issues, right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say any fighter has issues.
Well, yeah, I mean, I worded that badly, but
you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Any fighter, it doesn't matter where you're fighting. But like, yeah, mine was just over time. It was just anxiety, and a little bit of depression, and trying to get my brain to stop running my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what shut it off. And then the outside pressures from hockey, and wondering, you know, are you getting set down, or you getting traded, or you going here, you going there. For somebody that's a homebody, that was tough for me.
Yeah.
And then the concussions, like,
Yeah.
you know, you do your baseline test at the beginning of the year, so that if you do get a concussion, you do the test again, and then you see where you level up. Like, I was purposely fucking up the baseline test at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
so that when I was concussed, when I would do the test, I had some leeway there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could still
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
But yeah, after my last concussion, I think it was like 6 months, I was still not even getting 50% of my baseline test.
Yeah. Oh, geez. And you know, like you mentioned, they sent you down to Reading, right? Reading.
Yeah, Reading, yeah.
And you know, at that point, it was just like there wasn't much that was gonna help, right? Like there was guys there that like Rob Quit was there, but you know, it wasn't
Yeah.
like you could like you were kind of lost in your
I
journey.
had a really good buddy there with me, Rob Slaney, and Quit was there as well too. But I didn't mind Reading. Reading was a good place. It was a good system, and it was a great fans. And you know, if I almost wish that I was in a better state of mind when I was there, because I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more than what I did.
Yeah.
But of course, I was going through detox half the time I was there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And you know, like that's the thing. Like we're not going to shy away from anything, but that is a difficult thing, right? And I like to, you know, promote people's lives and stuff, but not everyone has a storybook story, right? And then you don't have to. You don't have to. That's not what you need to have, right? But what we like to do is we just like to talk everyone's people, right? So
yeah, I'm more
talk about it.
Yeah, I more so do it because, like, you know, even I messaged Branch the other day, and I like David Branch, and I just said, you know, we're me and Brady and Aaron Snow, Windsor guy, we're gonna try and put something together where we can talk to people and parents and teams and stuff like that on our spare time. But like, I messaged Branch, I said, you know, that's not gonna be ready for a very long time, probably. I don't know if you know of anybody that's hurting or whatever, but you know, if I could be a helping hand at all, like an open line for anybody, a helpline or anything, if you want to put something in place, like I'll answer the phone or I'll show up or whatever I need to do. But that's why I do this stuff, right? Because, you know, me in my position of when I was there in junior, you know, it all started at Windsor, or even pro and everything else. Like if there was somebody like myself available, maybe it would have been easier for me, right? So that's why I do it. That's why I speak about it. So
yeah. And you know what? Yeah, we have to, right? Just awareness, right? You know, you gotta talk about it a little bit, and you know, it's good that you can talk about it, like we mentioned, and now, like as you told me, you're living the boring life, just at home.
No, it's not boring at all. It's exciting with kids. Yeah.
Looks like you run like your own farm or something out there.
No, it's a house severed off farmland. I can help when I want to, and I can not help or whatever, right? But it's got a beautiful view, and it's something that I always wanted. You know, I got 2 beautiful kids. I got another one on the way. You know, married, and you know, I'm a foreman for a sewer and water main company, small company called Todd Brothers in Stouffville. And just a normal life. I say it's a normal, simple life because of what I came from with hockey and everything else. It was something that was least from normal. But obviously now it's different for me. But
yeah. But again, those are the stories that I like to tell. You know, we know guys from Windsor for whatever the reason is, but where are they now? What are they doing now? And even just your story is interesting to you know, to catch up with you, and it's cool that you know you still, you know, enjoyed your time in Windsor and say you love it. It's cool to, you know, still have some ties to.
Oh yeah, like me, and even my dad. Like my dad was in Windsor every single weekend. He did not miss a weekend in those 3 years. and he partied with the team. He had his own parties with his parents. Like, he loved Windsor. Like, he had the most fun ever there. And, you know, he misses all the people too. And, you know, my dad was such an amazing, is such an amazing guy. I think a lot of people got glued to him too while he was out there. So
That's cool, man. It's I don't want to end this. I'm sure there's more that
yeah,
we could talk about, or something that I could skip that I might have skipped over, but
oh,
I don't know, man. I
yeah,
just want to thank you for like really taking the time to join me and chat with me about your time in Windsor, talk about anything, and the
yeah,
stuff that you're
anytime.
doing for the future is cool, man.
Yeah, anytime, man. I enjoy it.